Meghan Markle's fakery with British Airways has just been exposed. When all else fails, when everything is going disastrously wrong, there's always a stunt involving an airplane. She is one of the worst passengers to ever travel on their airline. She was rude to the air hostesses. She tried to get upgrades. That was before she met Prince Harry. And she refused to even look after Archie on the flight. And he was crying for a long time before the nannies got in.
A card currently sitting on Meghan's Instagram feed is raising 3 clear problems that don't line up with the version of events being presented. Not from tabloids, not from palace-linked commentary, and not from people picking sides in the Sussex debate, but directly from the card itself, the airline's own public information, and one simple question that somehow nobody in the friendly media coverage has bothered to say out loud. That question is not complicated at all. It's only 7 words long. But once you actually read the card carefully, those 7 words start to matter more than anything written in the People magazine exclusive, the Hello article, or the GB News coverage combined. Tonight, that question is what we're focusing on, because the British Airways anniversary card story is not as innocent or spontaneous as it was made to look at first glance. When you slow it down and actually examine it, it starts to look more like a carefully built PR moment, constructed step by step from the flight to the Instagram post to the media rollout that followed. And this does not require insider access or secret sources. It only requires reading the card properly, checking the airline's own public records, and noticing where the story doesn't quite line up with what's being claimed. There are only 3 things needed here, nothing more. No palace briefing, no anonymous leaks, no hidden confirmation.
Merching our own wedding too. This is all extraordinary stuff, especially the fact that she claims that the British Airways crew on her flight from Europe back to Los Angeles just happened to know that it was her 8th wedding anniversary and just happened to write her this card expressing what a delight she is on the flight.
Just the basic timeline, the publicly available flight details, and the wording on the card itself. And one of the most important details in this entire situation isn't even something written on the card at all. It's what's missing from how the story connects together. To understand it properly, we need to set the scene because the context is everything here, and it changes how the entire moment reads. May 18th, 2026, a British Airways 777 operating flight BA269 pushes out from Heathrow Airport after preparing for a long-haul journey. Inside the premium cabin, there is one high-profile passenger on board, and her name appears on the flight manifest. Her husband's name does not appear anywhere in that record. Harry has previously stated multiple times that he does not return to the United Kingdom, and during this period, there is no confirmed record of him at Heathrow on the aircraft or involved in this journey in any way. Media coverage from multiple outlets, including the People magazine write-up and Hello's version of events, does not place him on the flight either. Even GB News frames the story as a solo travel moment rather than a shared trip. The day before this flight adds another layer to the timeline. Meghan had been in Geneva, appearing at a World Health Organization-related event, speaking publicly about social media and its effects on children, delivering remarks from a platform that drew attention.
Posted this weird picture getting ready to leave for the event on cyberbullying, and the whole event was about protecting your kids from social media, and I guess she doesn't see the hypocrisy that she's posting her kid on social media.
Even if attendance was not large. From there, she made her way toward Heathrow for the next stage of travel. The routing itself aligns with a connection through London before continuing onward to Los Angeles on the long-haul leg. Public flight tracking data and airport departure records show BA269 as the aircraft operating the final segment, with a slightly delayed pushback before completing its journey to Los Angeles later that day. On its own, that is just routine air travel. But when placed into the context of what follows, it becomes the foundation of a very specific narrative sequence. Because what we are left with is a single passenger journey on a long-haul flight. One traveller in premium class, a full cabin of other passengers, and then a social media post that appears shortly after arrival. And that's where the contrast starts to form. One passenger, one documented flight, one Instagram post, yet a card that is addressed to two people, as if both were physically part of that moment. That detail becomes the first friction point in the story. On board that aircraft are hundreds of passengers and crew members, including cabin staff responsible for service and in-flight interactions. What is not present in any verified record is Harry himself. He is not listed, not observed, and not connected to the flight in any documented way. Yet several hours into the journey, a celebratory card is presented, accompanied by champagne, and the tone of the moment shifts into something more curated and symbolic. By the next morning, that same card appears on Instagram. Shortly after, People magazine
leaks to People magazine, her propagandists at People magazine, that this was the crew, the British Airways crew, and she was just so touched that they loved her so much. Here's the article. Meghan Markle was moved by the kindness of a British Airways flight crew who helped ring in her wedding anniversary with Prince.
Publishes an exclusive version of the story, citing a source close to the Duchess of Sussex. The gap between landing and publication is only around 12 to 18 hours. In that short window, the Instagram post goes live, the media narrative forms, and the exclusive story is pushed into circulation. That raises simple but uncomfortable questions. Who initiated the contact with the magazine? Who shaped the wording of the quote? Who controlled the timing between post and publication? And how did the story move so quickly from a flight moment into a polished media feature? Only the people directly involved in that chain would know the full answer. But what matters here is what that timing suggests when you lay it all side by side. And that brings us directly to the first visible detail on the card itself. The greeting reads, "Dearest Harry and Meghan," which immediately frames the message as addressed to both of them together. That wording becomes significant when placed against the actual travel situation. Cabin crew typically write messages based on the passenger physically present in front of them, not someone who is not confirmed to be on board. So the question becomes unavoidable. How did the crew arrive at a plural greeting if only one half of the named pair was actually on the aircraft? Was there prior instruction? Was the moment prearranged? Or was the wording prepared ahead of time, based on something communicated before the flight even took place? The published version of the story describes a spontaneous moment with crew members coming forward, sharing memories, and celebrating the anniversary in a warm and emotional way. It paints a vivid picture of connection and nostalgia in the air, where crew members reflect on where they were during the royal wedding and share that moment with the passenger. But that version of events is supported only by a single unnamed source, described as close to Meghan, speaking through a magazine known for consistent Sussex-focused exclusives. And that's where the contrast sharpens again, because the narrative being presented relies heavily on that single channel of communication, while the physical details of the flight and the card itself raise separate questions that don't fully align. And when you line those two things up, the story being told and the record being shown, you are left with a gap that still hasn't been clearly explained or addressed. A closer look at the wording and structure of this moment instantly shows it is not some loose, spontaneous interaction. It reads like something that was already shaped before the pen even touched the paper. That card does not say, "Meghan, happy anniversary," or anything casual or improvised like that. It is formally addressed as "Dearest Harry and Meghan," and that single choice immediately defines the entire frame of the story being told. That is not a throwaway detail you just brush aside in an analysis like this. That is the structure of the entire message itself, and it raises a very direct contradiction with the actual situation being described. Because if only one half of that named couple is physically present, then the question becomes unavoidable. Why is the message built for two? At that point, there are only two realistic explanations. Either the crew wrote the message assuming both were involved in the journey, despite only one being present on board, which would be unusual for a spontaneous cabin gesture. or they were already given context that the message should reflect a couple's anniversary, meaning the framing existed before the card was even written. And once you slow it down further, the physical card itself starts revealing even more structure. The handwriting is not uniform across the entire piece. The main body of the message appears in one style, neat, controlled, and carefully formed, like it was written with intention rather than haste. Then you notice something else. The captain's note at the bottom is completely separate, both visually and stylistically, written in a different hand altogether. That immediately signals that this is not a single-person moment of spontaneous celebration, but a multi-contributor message built in layers. At minimum, 2 individuals physically contributed to this single card, possibly more when you consider how airline crew typically pass items between staff during coordinated service moments. This was not one quick signature or a passing scribble on a napkin-style note. This was structured participation in a shared message, and the key point here is choice. Whoever wrote the main inscription chose to frame it around both members of a marriage. That decision was made in real time, on a flight where only one of those individuals is publicly confirmed to be present. That is not a minor stylistic choice. It defines the entire narrative of the card itself. Then we come to the second major element, the captain's message. Separated from the main body, it stands on its own with full clarity and structure. It reads, "Lovely to have you on board. Congratulations on the anniversary. Signed by Captain Ed French." That is not just a signature or a casual add-on. That is a fully formed, grammatically complete statement, written as a direct acknowledgement of a personal milestone. It does not sit underneath another message as a side note. It exists independently as its own authored thought. Now pause and look at that from an operational reality perspective. A captain of a wide-body aircraft, like a Boeing 777, is not casually constructing personalized celebratory messages during idle time. Their focus is safety, timing, coordination, and flight execution from departure to landing. Pre-flight responsibilities include reviewing manifests, coordinating with crew, managing technical checks, and ensuring everything is aligned with strict airline procedures. There is no part of standard aviation workflow where a captain casually generates personalized anniversary messaging without prior awareness of the passenger context. So when a captain writes a fully structured sentence referencing a specific anniversary, it raises a direct question. How did that information become known before or during the flight? There are only a few possible pathways. One is that the passenger's team communicated the occasion ahead of time, which is not unusual in high-profile travel scenarios. Another is that the airline's internal systems flagged loyalty or profile information tied to personal milestones. And a third, far less likely possibility, is that the captain independently identified the detail through external information before the flight. All three lead to the same central issue. This was not random or accidental awareness. The information was present somewhere in the system or communicated into it before the message was written. And British Airways itself has publicly acknowledged that its operations can involve passenger data integration through loyalty programs and executive club systems, which are designed to personalize onboard experience. That means anniversary data is not outside the realm of airline infrastructure. It is part of how premium service personalization is built. However, what matters here is not the existence of systems, it is whether those systems were actually in play on this specific flight, and no direct confirmation has been provided. Because so far, there has been no official clarification from the airline addressing how the card was prepared, what data was used, or what briefings were given before the flight. No public breakdown, no statement explaining the personalization process in this case. And that silence becomes part of the structure of the story itself. Because when something like this gains public attention, especially involving a high-profile passenger, airlines typically respond quickly with a simple, neutral confirmation if everything aligns with standard procedure. Something brief, something routine, just enough to acknowledge the positive attention and move on. But in this case, there has been nothing of that kind. No clarification, no confirmation, no breakdown of how the moment was generated or whether it followed standard passenger personalization protocols. And that leaves the situation suspended between two interpretations. Either this was a standard airline gesture enhanced by known passenger data systems, or it was a more manually constructed moment shaped through coordination and prior awareness. Now, we move to the third layer, the one that is not physically visible on the card at all. British Airways has publicly documented in its privacy and service policies that executive club and loyalty systems can be used to personalize passenger experience. That includes access to preferences, travel history, and in some cases, milestone-related data tied to frequent flyer accounts. In other words, the infrastructure exists for cabin crew and onboard staff to know relevant personal information before a flight even begins. That is not speculation. That is part of the airline's own published framework for customer experience design. So the mechanism that could explain how an anniversary became part of onboard recognition is not theoretical. It is already built into the system. But the missing piece is confirmation. Whether that mechanism was actually triggered in this specific case has not been publicly confirmed by the airline. No statement has been issued. No breakdown has been provided to explain whether this was system-driven personalization or manually arranged acknowledgement. And when multiple major UK outlets reportedly sought clarification, the response from the airline side was silence. Now that silence is important because in normal PR conditions, especially when a positive celebrity moment goes viral, companies typically respond quickly to reinforce goodwill. A simple statement acknowledging the moment would usually be enough to close the loop and amplify the positive coverage. But that did not happen here. Instead, what remains is a published card, a captain's structured message, a media rollout through People magazine, and a timeline that moves very quickly from flight to Instagram to exclusive coverage without a clearly explained bridge between each step. And at the center of it all is still the same unresolved detail: how a message addressed to two people was prepared on a flight where only one of them is confirmed to have been present. And that is where the explanation still hasn't been fully completed. Its answer, across every inquiry, has been silence. And that silence is not accidental. It feels deliberate, controlled, and very carefully maintained. It is not the silence of an organization unaware of what is being discussed, but the silence of one that has fully understood the question being asked and decided not to answer it publicly. Because once a company like British Airways chooses not to clarify something that would normally be easy to confirm, it immediately raises a deeper layer of questions. If it was a simple, spontaneous gesture, a quick statement would end everything in seconds. Instead, what we get is nothing. No confirmation, no correction, no explanation. And that opens up multiple possibilities. Either it connects to internal passenger data systems or pre-flight arrangements or some level of coordination that the airline is not willing to publicly unpack. Only British Airways knows the real answer, but the choice to stay silent, even when positive publicity is on the table, is what makes that silence stand out so strongly. At the same time, royal correspondents and commentators have been watching the same week unfold in real time. Tom Sykes, who had already covered Meghan's appearance in Geneva, pointed out how her anniversary period content was unfolding across multiple platforms, with clear timing patterns emerging across posts and coverage. Alison Boshoff, speaking on Palace Confidential, described the week's output as a structured push that appeared to funnel attention toward branding activity. Richard Eden went further, expressing discomfort with how personal family imagery was being used within broader commercial narratives. These are not outside critics, they are journalists inside the same media ecosystem, reading the same signals as everyone else. And within that wider content cycle, the British Airways card becomes one of the most emotionally powerful pieces. It is simple, warm, visually relatable, and easy to circulate. It fits perfectly into a narrative of kindness, celebration, and human connection in an everyday setting, which is exactly why it matters how it came together. Now, to be fair, none of the individual elements alone can fully prove anything on their own. The fact that the card says Harry and Meghan could, in isolation, simply reflect a general assumption about the couple. The captain's message could theoretically come from casual awareness of the anniversary through conversation or briefing context, and the airline's privacy policy only confirms that systems exist. It does not confirm they were used in this specific moment. Each explanation is possible on its own, but when you stack all three together, the alignment becomes harder to ignore. A card addressed to two people when only one is confirmed on board. A captain writing a complete sentence referencing an anniversary, and an airline that publicly acknowledges it has systems capable of personalizing passenger experiences, all inside one tightly timed media cycle, individually explainable, but collectively harder to casually dismiss without clarification. And that brings everything back to the most important point of all, not the card itself, but the response to it. Because in a situation this simple, if everything were fully standard and routine, confirmation would usually come instantly. Airlines do not typically stay silent when a positive human interest story involving crew kindness goes viral. A short statement would normally be enough to confirm it and move on. But that statement never came. Instead, the story expanded through Instagram, through People magazine, through UK media coverage, and through repeated anonymous sourcing tied back to the same narrative line. And throughout all of it, British Airways has not publicly clarified how the card was prepared or whether any internal systems were involved. So what remains is a timeline built from visible actions, missing confirmations, and unanswered questions. A passenger boards a long-haul flight. A card is written on board. A captain adds a structured anniversary message. The card appears on Instagram the next morning, and a People magazine exclusive follows shortly after. And still, no official explanation fills in the gap between those steps. So here's where it lands. Three things stand out. The couple being addressed when only one passenger is confirmed, the captain's specific knowledge of the anniversary, and the airline's documented ability to personalize passenger experiences, combined with complete silence when asked to clarify any of it. Read the card again. Read the captain's line again. Then ask why it says Harry and Meghan when only Meghan is confirmed on that flight. And why an airline that normally responds quickly to positive attention has chosen not to clarify a moment that would usually be simple to confirm. And in the absence of that confirmation, people are left forming their own conclusions based on what is visible, what is documented, and what is still unanswered. That's where the conversation sits right now. So now, I'll leave it to you. Do you think this was just a spontaneous in-flight gesture from the crew that happened to line up in a very unusual way? Or does the combination of timing, wording, and silence suggest there's more going on behind the scenes than what's being publicly explained? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Palace Insider for more breakdowns like this, and I'll see you in the next one.